The film is set in West Africa, in the midst of a civil war involving several military factions. This conflict is devastating entire villages, as troops believe spies are hiding among the population. In this context, we are introduced to Agu, a young boy who, despite the hardships of his country, tries to find moments of fun with his friends. Agu lives in a neutral zone protected by ECOMOG, a military group that provides security, although refugees from the war constantly arrive. Despite the chaotic environment, his parents do their best to raise him with love alongside his older brother and his younger sister. The family regularly attends church, where rather than simply praying, they sing and dance, celebrating God. Overall, Agu leads a relatively peaceful life in his village, although he sometimes receives punishment for his mischief, nothing overly severe. However, this peace is interrupted when news spreads that rebel troops from the CNR are approaching. Many families decide to flee, while others choose to stay and defend their homes. Agu's father is one of those who chooses to stay and fight alongside his older son. Faced with the imminent arrival of the rebels, he sends his wife and daughter away, but unfortunately there is not enough space in the vehicle, so Agu is forced to remain in the village. When the rebel troops finally arrive, they devastate everything in their path and shoot anyone who crosses their way. Agu and his family hide in a building, but a gunshot gives away their location. The soldiers capture them, and under threat try to determine whether they are spies. Tragically, a village woman with whom the family had previous conflicts falsely identifies them as enemies. Without giving them a chance to defend themselves, the soldiers began executing the prisoners. Agu manages to escape at the last moment, but his brother is not as fortunate. In the middle of the night, Agu wanders through the jungle completely alone and devastated by the deaths of his father and brother. After a long journey and finding some supplies, he's intercepted by the FDN, Native Defense Forces, a guerrilla group composed mostly of children and adolescents. Unlike them, their leader is an adult man with extensive combat experience. After hearing Agu's story, he decides to recruit him and turn him into a soldier with the purpose of seeking revenge against the CNR. As part of his initiation, Agu is forced to carry a heavy ammunition box to the FDN camp, where the commander is received with great praise. Despite being a rebel group with scarce resources, they maintain a strict military structure. The children are not seen as minors but as soldiers in training, so Agu is subjected to intense instruction. He learns how to handle a rifle and perform a military salute, while his superior instills in them the idea that they must overthrow the CNR, which they consider an illegitimate government. The commander reinforces this belief, assuring them that they have all been victims of the war and have lost their families, but now they have the power to take revenge. Their mission is to take control of the country, no matter the cost. After several days of training and listening to violence-filled speeches, Agu is subjected to the final test to prove his loyalty. As part of this initiation ritual, the recruits are forced to inhale a hallucinogenic smoke and endure a brutal beating with bats. Those who cannot withstand the test are mercilessly killed, under the justification that in order to be reborn as warriors, they must first die symbolically. Agu is then buried for a long period of time until he leaves behind his childhood identity and emerges as a soldier. When he finally completes the trial, the commander assures the newly initiated that they are now protected by the spirits and that they will be invisible to the enemy's eyes. One night, the battalion sets fire to the camp before relocating, as they must leave no trace of their presence. After a long journey, Agu participates in his first operation, serving as an assistant responsible for supplying ammunition to the larger soldiers. The group hides under a bridge, waiting for the arrival of a CRN military convoy. As soon as it appears, the FDN troops attack with full force, proving that despite their young age, they are true killing machines. After the ambush, the rebels take prisoner the soldiers who manage to survive. Among them is one whom Agu is forced to execute as part of his initiation. Although the boy hesitates at first, the commander fills him with rage by reminding him that these men were responsible for the deaths of his family. Overcome by fury, Agu attacks him with a machete, tearing him apart with the help of Strika, another young soldier his age. When the enemy officer is nothing more than a shredded mass of flesh, Agu is given his own rifle. He is no longer a child, he is now a soldier, and there is no turning back. Over time, Agu attempts to start conversations with Strika, but he remains silent and communicates only through gestures. However, as they participate in more missions together, they develop a strong bond of friendship. On another occasion, the commander addresses his troops about a village where they will find abundant food, resources, and above all, beautiful women. Suddenly, the speech is interrupted by the arrival of refugees from a nearby town which is being attacked by the forces of the ARN and the FLP. The battalion immediately heads there to retake it, but they suffer heavy casualties, which severely undermines the fighters' morale. Seeing this, the commander employs a motivational tactic to ensure that his soldiers advance without fear and do not retreat. With renewed determination, the young fighters manage to push through the enemy forces, despite being at a disadvantage in terms of firepower. That night, after having taken the town, the FDN counts its dead. At that moment, the commander summons Agu to his office and congratulates him on his performance in battle, assuring him that he has the blood of a leader. A soldier makes a small cut in his skin and applies brown, a mixture of cocaine and gunpowder. Instead of calming him, the substance puts him in a state of maximum alertness, which ends up enhancing his performance during the next incursion. During the assault on another village, he begins to experience hallucinations, seeing the world in shades of pink and white. However, not even this distracts him from his mission, mercilessly massacring the villagers. Over time, Agu becomes accustomed to violence, taking pleasure in a life marked by death and destruction. However, everything changes during a new attack when he encounters a woman who reminds him of his mother. Impulsively, he runs toward her and embraces her, but upon realizing she is not who he thought, he accuses her of being a witch and allows his companions to beat and abuse her, as well as her young daughter. After a few moments of hesitation, Agu changes his mind and, in an act of mercy, shoots her in the head to end her suffering. After a devastating raid, the soldiers decide to tie grenades to the mouths of the survivors, leaving one villager alive and forcing him to flee to the next town to warn them of the arrival of the FDN troops. Before continuing their dangerous journey, the commander's battalion heads to the FDN military base, following orders from the Supreme Commander, Dada Goodplot. After several hours of waiting, they are finally received at Goodplot's luxurious mansion, where Agu and his companions enjoy a feast unlike anything they have ever experienced. However, Goodplot arrives with bad news for the commander. His chief of security demotes him, and the lieutenant assumes command of the battalion. This enrages the commander, who had expected to be promoted to general so he could take the country's capital. Although Goodplot proposes a more peaceful strategy, warning that the world will judge them when the conflict ends, the commander has no choice but to accept the new orders. That same night, he invites his troops to a brothel to drink and have fun, while Agu and Strika are left in charge of guarding the weapons. In the middle of the celebration, the lieutenant is shot in the stomach, and although the commander tries to blame it on the girl he was with, he orders the execution of the women present. This massacre forces the battalion to abandon the town, as they become enemies of their own faction. After taking refuge in the ruins of a building, they hold a funeral for the fallen lieutenant. As they continue their journey toward another camp, the battalion is attacked by a helicopter, resulting in the deaths of several soldiers. Later, they hear nearby gunfire and prepare for combat, but Strika, wounded by a recent gunshot, refuses to fight. Agu carries him on his back, but after a long walk, Strika dies, and not even his friend's pleas can prevent it. In the following scene, we see that the commander's battalion has set up a camp near a gold deposit where they attempt to extract resources in order to survive. The situation worsens when they run out of ammunition, food, and water. Many of the soldiers, including the lieutenant, wish to desert, but the commander warns them that if they do so, their families will reject them and they could end up imprisoned for war crimes. Despite the lack of resources, the lieutenant decides to challenge the commander, even though he has no bullets. In a dramatic turn, the lieutenant points his weapon at his leader, who, upon realizing that the only person he trusted is defying him, decides to let everyone go.
Despite his resentment, he warns them that one day they will return crawling at his feet, but his words fade into the air for Agu and the other soldiers who abandon him without any remorse. In the end, the commander is left without an army. The young warriors, exhausted by so much violence and death, finally surrender to United Nations forces. The youngest children are sent to a missionary school in a safe region to begin their rehabilitation. Despite being surrounded by other children, Agu remains distant, unable to escape his trauma. At night, he suffers nightmares due to withdrawal from drugs. Meanwhile, the commander's soldiers, Pritchard and Randy, grow tired of the peaceful life at the school and decide to flee in order to return to war, the only place where they feel complete. On the other hand, the school counselor attempts to speak with Agu. After days of absolute silence, he confesses that he has seen and done terrible things which make him feel like a beast. However, he also remembers that he was once a child like any other, with a family that loved him. Deep down, all he wants is to be loved again. In the final scene, the children at the school play on the beach, throwing themselves into the sea and enjoying a ball game. After reflecting for a moment, Agu joins the game, recovering a piece of his innocence and happiness, returning, if only briefly, to the life of a hopeful child.
Thanks for watching. Remember to like and subscribe for more movie breakdowns and recaps.